Let's get into it. The legend of Pablo Torre grows. I wrote about this for Awful Announcing today, Ben, on the site, and it was something I really actually took like multiple days to write and something I had been stewing on for much longer. And the Clippers story that he broke the past couple of weeks was a perfect opportunity, I think, to explore it, to recap what that was. Connecting dots, basically, through his podcast, Pablo Torre finds out that allegedly show questionable business dealings between a Clippers sponsor that was in the climate change, carbon credit space, and the Clippers team and their owners that, if proven to be what they look like, would be, clear salary cap circumvention, big time rule breaking by the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard, the company, whoever might be implicated when it's all said and done. The NBA has launched an investigation, and this has just been the entire, it's September. There's no basketball story usually this time of year, but this has become the big news in the basketball world. But what my article mostly was talking about was like the way that Pablo kind of handles himself and has kind of turned himself into a cause de celeb or a folk hero or whatever you want to kind of term it as. Somebody who has like not just an audience but a fan base as an investigative reporter, as somebody who basically does like what Don Van Natta or like Bob Woodward does. Like people who are usually names, but never celebrities or, popular in this way. So what have you made of how Pablo has kind of created that niche for himself in addition to doing like breaking news, big time work that matters?
Well, I'll turn this around on you. And I want to know, like, if you think this is something that Pablo is like intentionally doing, and he's saying like, okay, I need to like promote my work, and this is how my investigative work is going to be different from what Don Van Natta is doing at ESPN. So I'm going to promote it in this way. Or do you think it's just like, I think Pablo is a couple of years older than me. So he's like, an older millennial, like, but he's online, like he speaks online. So is this just how somebody who is, I think he's like 39 years old. This is how somebody who's 39 years old would promote their work, and how this is how, it's largely how he has engaged with his audience throughout his career, whether he's doing this sort of work or not. Obviously it's more, it's louder and it's more, it's under a brighter spotlight because of the work.
And it's just like,
it's not a departure for him.
No, but what he's doing is a departure, right? Like, this is a guy who wrote magazine features, hosted a goofy show with Bomani Jones, would be in Miami with Le Batard. The stuff he did was fairly thematically similar to the type of guy he might be online, whereas now, like, he's kind of in this space where you're supposed to shut up and dribble a little bit, right? Like, you're kind of just supposed to put your head down, let the work speak for itself. Like, you're in legal crossfire. You're making very, like, Steve Ballmer's a rich fucking guy. Like, you're supposed to just let the lawyers talk to Ballmer if they need to and publish your next article when it's ready, and we'll hear from you then, right? Like, I think that's why I thought it was an interesting topic, because like, fill in the blank with your favorite content creator. Like, just Dave Portnoy. Like, of course he's everywhere. He plays the game. He fights with people and posts videos and calls and harasses reporters and whatever. But, like, that's because he's going to tell you to bet on the Panthers and then, like, eat a piece of pizza. That's a different type. That makes sense. This is, like, a collision of two worlds that aren't supposed to go together. But my take was in the piece, like, I think you have to do this in order for work like that to reach the level that Pablo's has.
And I also think it helps that Mark Cuban seems happy to just like string this along. And like Mark Cuban keeps giving him almost the perfect foil to like not only prop up his reporting, but also like emphasize and strengthen it. And like, I don't really understand what Mark Cuban is doing or why he's doing it. But I think like it has just created almost this perfect storm where Pablo can keep, a story that came out a week ago now, or close to a week ago, like it has a longer shelf life because Mark Cuban keeps trying to argue with him about it for some reason.
It definitely, like, part of it's just like that self-defense aspect, right? Like, if people are going to keep coming out so vocally to pick apart his reporting and amplify these really minor disagreements that they might have, or like elements that they think have holes in them, like, I think it's human nature to kind of address that in some ways. And like, I don't think that part is so different than how another reporter might handle their business. Like, everybody kind of, you release a big story, you have a big scoop, you give a important take or whatever it might be, like, yeah, you're going to get calls from radio shows, or you're going to be on Twitter the next day kind of like commenting on it. But he goes further than that, in my opinion, where he's, I wrote up him like saying this whole story to him is an IQ test for the rest of NBA media to like see, do you fall for the billionaire's side, or can you like clearly see the pattern that he's establishing, things like that, posting memes and GIFs at the subjects of his reporting, like it's much more like sloppy internet drama type of combativeness than I think, like, and maybe that is just being his age and growing up the way that he did. And he's 20, 30 years younger than Don Van Natta or Maggie Haberman or whoever you want to like throw out there from the serious journalism world that he's kind of jumping into. But the other part of it that I wanted to give like legitimate airtime to, though, Ben, is like, I do think that there is like does this detract from his message in some way? Does this like aggressiveness that he has lead to some pushback that wouldn't be there otherwise? Like, there are some benefits to keeping your head down in that way, and I think more seriously than that too, like, I think part of why he has to defend himself so much is because, and I want to know if you agree with this, he operates independently. He's doing it on a podcast. It isn't like a newspaper expose the way that, Watergate or something was. Like, do you think he kind of has to defend himself because he's working in a way that's a little, maybe 5% thinner, or a little bit more like loose with the certainty than other places might do? Because I've seen that leveled against him, and I don't think it's fully crazy to say.
I think, one, to your first question, like, does it detract? I think as long as he has the goods, he has the goods. So like, as long as the reporting holds up, I think that's ultimately what matters. And to this point, especially with this story, like, I don't think there's really been anything that's been too strong in opposition of it, other than like Mark Cuban saying, I don't think Steve Ballmer would do this. Like, there hasn't been I haven't seen it, at least, like a strong argument against his reporting.
I guess I wouldn't say that there's been an argument against his reporting, but I guess like I wonder if it can contribute to like an idea that it's kind of like a silly in a way, or like what a younger audience might look at as like relatable. I think that there's an institutional, the stodgy old people in the space might look at as like kind of minimizing the work a little bit. Like, you put it out and then you come take a victory lap and goof around on the internet. It takes the air out of what you put out a little bit. I don't, of course, like, it's hard because I'm kind of creating a straw man to try to guess why I've seen some of the reactions that I have, but there's definitely been like the mainstream journalism community with a few of these scoops along the way have kind of been like, let's pump the brakes, hold up here. Let's make sure we got everything in order before we start piling on the NFLPA or the Clippers.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that probably the bigger concern for me, if I were in his shoes, would be the idea that like, okay, now, like, is this something you're rooting for? Like, it seems like you have
Yeah.
a rooting interest in this story now,
Yes,
as opposed
that
to
too.
somebody who's, covering it objectively. I think that's where my concerns about the perception would be. But again, as long as he has the goods, then he has the goods. But yeah, that would be my bigger concern, because I don't know. I don't get the sense he's treating it like a silly story. I actually get the sense he's treating it like a very silly story. I get what you're saying in terms of how he's promoting it. But I don't, I
Like,
think
just, there's a big scoop and then you post the Russell Westbrook
right.
emoji that he keeps using above it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that like delegitimizes the news that he's breaking, but it does. It's like, is it really important, or is it a gif? Like, I do think that some people can see it that way, where, I've said it, like, but I think your point about the rooting interest is a more succinct way of saying what I was trying to get at a little bit in the piece too, where, like, for instance, like, the best example that I could use to kind of highlight that would be, he used, like, some people treat the word collusion, which was kind of at the center of the NFLPA reporting, where a judge ruled that there were things that you could, like, the common person might see as collusion, but that doesn't, by the book of the NFL's CBA, count as collusion. Some people, if you were a reporter in Pablo's position talking about that stuff, you would treat collusion like the word murder, where it's like it's a killing until it's declared to be murder, or it's texts between owners until a judge tells you it's collusion. Whereas Pablo, from moment one of all of that, called it collusion. You know what I mean? Like, put that label that's very legally loaded and would obviously be the kind of end result that might come of his reporting, but wasn't there yet. He basically, like, you hear him talk about it, it was collusion from the jump. So I think some of that stuff is like a little bit of a gray area that he's just fully jumping into. And I think it really works for his audience because it communicates the point of what he's doing really well.
Yeah.
But it also kind of, again, like a Dan Patrick or, whatever, like these people who have seen a lot of Pablos come through before or whatever, like, they're going to, I think, look at some of that and go, well, hold on, it's not collusion. Why aren't you seeing this through? It leaves them open. It leaves them exposed a little bit.
Yeah. And I think some of that might be, again, him being a younger guy. I mean, I don't know how many other people in his age range are doing this sort of work, at least at this sort of scale. For whatever reason, most of the investigative sports reporters seem to be on the older side. I think it's what works for him, though. Like, this is his brand. I mean, he treats silly stories seriously, and he's part of the Meadowlark universe. Like, this is kind of the Meadowlark ethos still. So I think it works for him. I understand why people would try to poke holes in it. But I think, again, his reporting has been so strong. The fact that he's gotten like these three big stories now this year, kind of the tentpole stories that he's gotten between Jordan Hudson, the NFLPA stuff, and now this, like, I think it speaks for itself. So I could see where those arguments would come from, but I think it works for him. And I think at this point, his work largely speaks for itself.
The main point, I think, is, with having gone through both sides now, like, it's just remarkable to build a rabid audience around stuff that most people's eyes would glaze over if it was in a different form or from a different person. It's just crazy.
Somebody tweeted, like, you need to get on the Epstein list in terms of finding it. You need to find the Epstein list. And he retweeted it and said, this tweet, actually, versions of this tweet inspired my story tomorrow. And you look at the reactions, the immediate reaction was, oh, he has the Epstein list. And it's like, he didn't have the Epstein list. I never thought he had the Epstein list, but like, the fact that he could tweet what he tweeted as vaguely as he did, and the majority conclusion would be, oh, he has the Epstein list, is wild to me. So yeah, I mean, the other part I find funny is He's used this threat against Bill Simmons now, and he's used this threat against Mark Cuban when they've gone after him. And he just says, "Can you come on the podcast? I have some questions for you." And it's just like the most threatening thing. Like you could say it's relatively benign, but it would send a shiver down my spine if he ever said that. If I ever got a DM from Pablo Torre and it said, "Hey, can you come on the podcast? I have some questions from you," I would be I'd be team shitting bricks, to steal a term from the Mark Cuban podcast.
And that Epstein thing became, I think, part 4 of the NFLPA stuff, where he went behind the scenes of how the new interim executive director of the NFLPA was involved in some pretty weird cover-ups regarding child actors in the Hollywood Guild that he ran. So it's it's the worst post to receive in sports media right now is the like, "Hold on, I have questions for you," or "Let's talk" from Pablo. If you first imagined yourself to be an opponent of his and suddenly he's actually embracing you.